Picture this, you're sitting in your office, quietly sipping your coffee, and your phone rings. It's Aunt Mabel. You know, the one who always brings her famous apple pie to family gatherings and who still insists on pinching your cheeks even though you're well into adulthood. She's calling, not for a chit-chat or to ask about the weather, but to place an order for your business's intimate services. Yes, you heard that right. Aunt Mabel, apple pies and all, has accidentally ordered intimate services from you. Now, you're probably thinking, what in the world? And trust me, you're not alone. The internet is full of people who have found themselves in similar blush-inducing situations. There's a story of a man who runs a massage service, who once received a booking from his grandmother, or the woman who sells adult toys online, and one day found an order from her very conservative uncle. Can you imagine their faces when they realized who the customer was? The confusion, the embarrassment, the desperate hope that this was all just a big misunderstanding. I bet they wished they could just disappear into the floor. But remember, these are business professionals. They had to keep their cool, despite the awkwardness. Speaking of awkward, let's not forget the reactions of the relatives when they found out. The grandmother, once she realized her mistake, reportedly said, "Well, I heard you were good at your job, but I didn't realize it was that kind of massage." And the uncle, bless his heart, simply said, "I thought I was ordering a back massager." These situations can be a minefield of awkwardness and hilarity, but they're also a reminder that sometimes life throws us curveballs. And when it does, we have to roll with the punches, even if those punches come in the form of an intimate service order from Aunt Mabel. And just like that, your world has shifted. You're no longer just a business owner, you're Aunt Mabel's unexpected, intimate service provider. So, what do you do in a situation like this? Do you politely tell Aunt Mabel she's made a mistake, or do you go along with it? Well, let's explore our options here. The first and most obvious choice is to kindly explain the mix-up. It's like ripping off a band-aid, quick and a little painful, but it gets the job done. However, if you're not comfortable with direct confrontation, this might not be the best approach for you. Now consider this. You could also play along, at least temporarily. This approach could lead to an absurd and humorous situation, serving as a great anecdote for future family gatherings. But remember, this can quickly spiral out of control, turning a hilarious situation into a downright awkward one. Let's bring in some real-world experiences. Here's a comment from a guy who goes by the username No Way Jose. He faced a similar predicament when his grandmother accidentally ordered a risque calendar from his online store. His solution? He played along and sent her a family-friendly version instead. He had a good laugh about it later with his grandma, turning an awkward situation into a fond memory. And then there's Miss Oops-a-did-it-again, who found herself in a similar pickle when her cousin ordered some intimate items from her online boutique. She chose the direct approach, tactfully explaining the mix-up. It was a bit uncomfortable at first, but they eventually laughed it off. These experiences show us that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding a balance between maintaining a professional relationship with your customer and preserving the personal relationship with your family member. So whether you choose to address it head-on or spin it into a humorous tale, the key is to handle it with grace and a sense of humor. After all, these are the moments that make family, well, family. Remember, Aunt Mabel might be family, but she's also a customer, and the customer's always right. Now comes the moment of truth. It's time to have the talk with Aunt Mabel. Picture this. You're sitting down with your Aunt Mabel, sipping on a cup of tea as you both exchange pleasantries. The moment is ripe, and you know you have to broach the subject that has been hanging heavy in the air. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but it has to be done. Let's take a stroll through the internet to find some gems on how others have navigated these treacherous waters. There's a story of a woman named Lucy who found herself in a similar predicament. Lucy, with her heart pounding, simply asked her aunt, "Do you know what I do for a living?" Her aunt, clueless about Lucy's profession, was taken aback when Lucy explained the intimate nature of her services. The conversation was awkward, yes, but in the end, they shared a laugh and moved on. Then there's Sam, who opted for a more direct approach. He confronted his uncle and told him, "I'm not comfortable providing you with my services." It was a tense moment, but Sam's honesty paved the way for a better understanding. But not all talks are awkward or funny. Some are serious. Take Maria's story, for instance. Maria had to explain to her cousin that her profession should not be a source of family gossip or judgment. It was a serious conversation, but it ended up strengthening their relationship. Every conversation is unique, just like the person you're having it with. It's about finding the right balance between honesty and sensitivity, and as you can see, There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It depends on your relationship with the relative, your level of comfort, and how much you're willing to share about your personal life. In the end, the talk is about setting boundaries and making sure everyone involved understands and respects them. It might be a rocky road, but it's a necessary journey to ensure mutual respect and understanding. There you have it. The talk is over, but the story doesn't end there. The aftermath of such a situation can be as hilarious as it is awkward. Let's dive into the world of consequences and outcomes of this peculiar predicament. The internet is a treasure trove of hilarious, awkward, and even serious stories about how people have handled the aftermath of a relative ordering intimate services from them. First up, there's a tale of a woman who accidentally got booked for a bachelor party by her own uncle. The shock on their faces when she walked in was priceless. Both were so mortified they couldn't look at each other for the rest of the evening. Needless to say, that bachelor party became a lot more memorable than anyone anticipated. Then we have the story of a guy who got hired by his cousin for a private cooking lesson. He knew his cousin was a bit of a foodie, but he didn't realize how intimate the dinner was supposed to be. When he arrived at his cousin's place and realized the situation, he decided to play along and cook the most romantic meal possible, complete with candles and a bottle of wine. The cousin was so embarrassed that he now refuses to make eye contact whenever they meet. And let's not forget the sobering story of a woman who was booked by her own father for a massage. She was completely taken aback but decided to go through with it, turning it into a therapeutic session for both of them. They ended up having a deep conversation about their relationship, and it brought them closer than ever before. These stories serve as a reminder that even though this situation may be awkward, it can also lead to some unexpected outcomes. Whether it's a hilarious story to tell at parties, an opportunity to break the ice in a tense relationship, or even a chance to have a heart-to-heart conversation with a family member, the aftermath can be surprisingly positive. In the end, it might be an awkward situation, but it's also a great story for the next family gathering. Every cloud has a silver lining, and this awkward situation is no different. When we find ourselves in uncomfortable circumstances, especially involving family, it's easy to feel like the world is crashing down around us. But let's take a step back and look at these situations from a different perspective. From the stories shared across the web, it's clear that such incidents are not isolated, and many have found themselves in a similar predicament. The comments show that these awkward encounters can serve as catalysts for personal growth and understanding. One user shared, "I learned that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. It's not about being selfish, it's about preserving your mental health and personal space." This is a powerful sentiment. Setting boundaries is essential in every relationship, and sometimes it takes an awkward situation to realize that. Another comment reads, "I learned that communication is key. Had I communicated my profession more clearly to my family, this awkward situation could have been avoided." This highlights the importance of open and honest communication, not just in our professional lives, but in our personal lives too. Yet another user remarked, "I found that these situations can be quite humorous if taken with a pinch of salt. It makes for a good story at family gatherings." Here we see the power of humor and how it can lighten even the most awkward situations. From these comments, it's evident that every situation, no matter how uncomfortable, can teach us valuable lessons. It can help us set boundaries, improve communication, and find humor in the most unlikely places. Remember, it's not about the awkwardness of the situation, but how we react to it, how we grow from it, and how we use it to better ourselves and our relationships. So, the next time your phone rings and it's a relative on the line, remember, it could always be worse. You could be Aunt Mabel's intimate service provider,